All right, so now we are going to move on to section 8.5, and this section is going to be adding and subtracting rational expressions. All right, so we're actually going to break this down into 3 videos. All right, video 1, we are going to add rational expressions. Video 2, we will subtract rational expressions. And video 3, we will do complex fractions. All right? All right, so when we're adding or subtracting fractions, it's just like with regular numbers. So if I give you 2/3 plus 5/6, and I ask you to add these, well, we need to have common denominators. So we need to have the same denominators. So we would multiply this fraction by 2/2, and then we would get 4/6 plus 5/6 is then equal to 9/6. And then if we need to, we will reduce at the end and say, well, that's equal to 3/2. All right, all of these steps are exactly like we'll be doing in these sections, except for instead of it being simple numbers like these are here, we're going to be dealing with x squared minus 1 and things like that. But we will look at our denominators and say, all right, we need our denominators to be identical. We need them to be the same. And what do I need to multiply this by in order to get like denominators? That you can solve for your like denominators is finding your least common multiple of your denominators. We're not going to necessarily use that in this video. We'll do that in class, but you'll find your least common multiples, and that tells you what you need to multiply by so you have the exact same denominator. We'll do kind of like what a least common multiple is, but without showing the exact steps of it. But we'll do that one in class to go over. All right, but what we will do is on our first video, we are just simply going to add our fractions, our rational expressions. All right, so let's go ahead and start doing one. So we're asked to add these two together. Right, just like with multiplying, dividing, everything that we did, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to factor our denominators out. All right, we don't need to factor our numerators, but we're going to factor our denominator out because we need to figure out what we're missing or what we need to multiply by. So it'll be x over x minus 1, because we can't factor that, plus 2x minus 1 over top of this sign tells me that they're both the same. This tells me that they're both negative, so it'll be x minus and x minus. So factors of 2 to add up to 3, well, the only factors of 2 are 1 and 2, and they do add up to 3. All right, so now we look at our denominators. Here we have an x minus 1, and in this fraction we have an x minus 1. However, in this one we have an x minus 2. We're missing that here. So in order for us to have the same denominator for us to add, we need to multiply this. And we're missing this x minus 2, so we will multiply this by x minus 2 over x minus 2. Right? It's the same thing that we did here in this first problem where we multiplied by 2/2. Nothing changes. Right? X minus 2 over x minus 2 is equal to 1. So we're not changing the value of anything. But now we will have to do x minus 2 times x over x minus 2 times x minus 1 plus 2x minus 1 over x minus 2 times x minus 1. We will distribute this x in, so then we get x squared minus 2x over x minus 2 times x minus 1 plus 2x minus 1 over x minus 2 times x minus 1. All right, now since this is adding, we can go ahead and we will add our denominators. So this will then give us, after we add, it'll give us x squared. We'll write this up here. It'll give us x squared, because there's no other x squared. Now here we have minus 2x and plus 2x, so that will cancel out. And then we're left with minus 1, all over top of x minus 2 times x minus 1. All right, now you might think that we're done here. But just like with this first problem that we had to reduce 9/6, we need to reduce this and simplify as much as we can. So since x squared minus 1 can factor, we will factor it out as x minus 1 times x plus 1, and that will be over x minus 2 times x minus 1. X minus 1s can cancel out, and now we're just left with x plus 1 over x minus 2. That will be our answer. Right? That is adding those rational expressions together. And now the last thing that we have to do is state any restrictions on the variable. Well, the restrictions are that the restrictions are that x minus 2 cannot equal to 0, or x minus 1 cannot equal to 0. So x cannot equal 2, or x cannot equal 1. All right, there's one more problem that we're going to do with this video and then in this section, and that's it. But before we move onto the next question, I do want to talk about that this is very similar to what we did in this very first problem with just the numbers. All right, so here we looked for our common denominator, where we saw we needed to multiply by 2 over 2. And then we did, and then we got 4 over 6 plus 5 over 6. Then we added our numerators and got 9. And after we solved for a fraction, we then need to say, well, does it reduce? And it did to 3 over 2. Here we looked at our denominators, and we said, all right, what are we missing? Well, we need to multiply by x minus 2. So we multiply by x minus 2 over x minus 2. And then we added our numerators across, and then we looked to simplify, like we did. All right, so nothing changes. It's the exact same thing. All right, so for this one here, same thing, we want to factor. So we have x plus 1 over x minus 1 plus negative 2. Well, here there's an x in both, so we can factor out an x, and we're left with x minus 1. So we have an x minus 1 in both. We have an x in this one. We're missing that here. So we need to multiply by x over x. So we get x times x plus 1 over x times x minus 1 plus negative 2 over x times x minus 1. We'll distribute the x in. So we get x squared plus x over x times x minus 1 plus negative 2 over x times x minus 1. So now that we have common denominators, we can go ahead and add across on our numerators. So we have x squared plus x minus 2 over top of x times x minus 1. And remember, we're not done yet. We have to simplify. So we need to ask ourselves, can this factor? Well, this minus sign tells me that they will be different. So if it can factor, it would be x plus and x minus. All right, so then factors of 2 that have a difference of 1, well, 2 and 1. And since this is positive, that means our larger number has to be positive. So x plus 2 and x minus 1. So that means we can cancel out, we can simplify. And this final answer is x plus 2 over x. And same thing, any restrictions? Well, we know x and x minus 1 are our two factors. So x cannot be equal to 0. And x minus 1 cannot be equal to 0. So x cannot be equal to 1, or x cannot be equal to 0. All right, that is it for this video. That is it for adding. So it's really nothing new in the sense that we've learned all these steps. The only thing that does make this more challenging is now it's going to be x squared minus x instead of just 6 and 3. But it's the exact same steps as before. All right, same thing. All right, that's it for this video. 2 more in this section.